All right, so step two is environmental signaling. So this is where we get into the nervous system regulation because essentially every single input and every single environmental exposure you have on a daily basis must be integrated and regulated by your nervous system. So that includes everything from the quality of the air that you're breathing, right? Whether you're having to filter out pollutants or you're breathing clean air, to the water that you're drinking, the light to which you're being exposed, and the sound. So environmental signaling is kind of at the, especially related to air, water, light, sound, is at the base level, what I call the core basics of your environmental input. So every environmental input your body receives must be regulated by your nervous system. At the most basic level, this includes the air you breathe, the water you drink, the light exposure you receive, and the sounds of your environment. So what I'd like for you to think about is, where is your environment taxing your nervous system, and what can you do to lighten the load? So for a lot of people, they are exposed to lighting conditions at work that are either too dim for good human functioning, or actually too bright for good human functioning. There's been an epidemic of depression in nursing homes simply related to lack of adequate light exposure. Obviously, we know that people who are in nursing homes might have other reasons to experience some degree of mental decline as well. But what has been demonstrated is that simply exposing people in nursing homes to adequate sunlight produced a significant increase in their mood. So for many of us, we are working in offices that are simply too dim, or actually overstimulating, in the sense that they expose us to too much blue light all day long. Similarly, take into consideration the sounds that you're being exposed to in your environment. For example, many people are working in office spaces where, or simply even working from home, where they might be bombarded by a lot of audio interruption in the form of notifications on the computer, on the phone, etc. I remember the first week or two of the lockdown, I had not experienced so many notification interruptions as when I started working from home, and all these little pop-ups were all over my computer. I don't have those, didn't have those enabled at my office, but I had them enabled at home and needed to correct that. So we have your just basic level of environment: air, water, light, sound. But next, we have what I think is even more invasive now, which is the social environment that comes in the form of the company that you keep, family to whom you're exposed, the neighborhood in which you live, what's happening in society at large, and the biggest one of all, social media. It was really interesting pulling up some photos for this slide, because all of the images, like the stock images related to social media, seem to imply that people enjoy using social media. And when I looked for a stock image that was related to people experiencing some degree of overwhelm, all of them were related to paperwork, which I found really funny, because my experience now perhaps might be that I would love to just have a bunch of paperwork rather than being bombarded by a bunch of digital media. But the big key here is that, and I think that everyone is experiencing this now, related to current events, is that we did not evolve to consume as much information as we're currently consuming. And the consequence is that it takes a toll on our nervous system that we are not adapted to handling. And so the consequence, and this is why I'm encouraging you to do the uncommon, the consequence is that this nervous system bombardment from social media and the screens to which we're exposed is essentially a health hazard that we must regulate, or we're going to suffer the consequences for not doing so. And suffering the consequences means anxiety, overwhelm, and simply feeling bad. So our ability to innovate is outpacing our ability to regulate. In other words, we are getting more inputs than we can sort. And so what I advise my clients to do, and that they have done with success, is rein in their social media consumption and their news consumption. So maybe you want to take 5 minutes per day to consume the news, 1 minute per day. Just set some degree of kind of capacity or limit on it in a way that you can consume it in a healthy way. And this also requires having a conversation with yourself and maybe even your spouse about how much information do you actually need versus how much of it simply becomes infotainment and a kind of sick form of infotainment in the sense that it's not serving you. So we have the social component of your nervous system regulation. And then what is my favorite part would be the natural component of nervous system simulation, meaning getting into an environment that we evolved to experience that makes sense to us. So that means spending time in nature, spending time barefoot outside. And this is a little bit tied to the slide before, is I would encourage you to reduce your exposure to non-native EMF sources, meaning reduce your exposure to Wi-Fi, reduce your exposure to Bluetooth. All of these technologies are taxes on your nervous system. And so you're not using your Wi-Fi at night, presumably. You're not using your Bluetooth at night. So you could turn those things off at night, or you could even turn them off when you have your phone on your body. You could even take it a step further if you want and simply keep your phone in airplane mode when it's on your body, unless you're expecting a call. I know for some of you who are parents or who get a lot of phone calls, that might be a little less practical than for others, but the degree to which you can reduce your exposure to non-native electromagnetic fields, the more reduction that you can experience, the better that your outcomes will be.